On top of each turbine is a box known as a nacelle. Attached to the nacelle are 3 propeller-like blades that connect to a rotor. Also on the nacelle is an anemometer to measure wind speed and direction. The wind direction rotates the nacelle to face into the wind. The energy in the wind, called kinetic energy, turns the turbine blades around the rotor, creating mechanical energy. The rotor connects to the main shaft, which turns inside the generator housing. Here, a magnetic rotor spins inside loops of copper wire. This causes electrons inside the copper to flow, creating electrical energy, what we call electricity in our daily lives. For this wind turbine, a step-up transformer inside the nacelle increases the electrical generation from 690 volts to 3,400 volts. The electricity generated then travels down large cables from the nacelle through the tower and into underground cables. The cables take the electricity generated from all the wind turbines to a substation. Here, a step-up transformer again increases the electrical output. A transmission line connects the electricity output at the substation to the electrical grid serving communities throughout the region.
Wind power. Pros: clean energy, relatively low cost, abundant domestic supply. The power is essentially free, low life cycle carbon footprint, can be used almost anywhere. Cons: wind is unpredictable, not cheap, relies on government subsidies to remain competitive, take away from picturesque view. So, what can go wrong?
The Sun is the original source of almost all the energy used on Earth. The Earth receives a staggering amount of energy from the Sun. As much energy falls on the planet each hour as the total human population uses in a whole year. Solar panels are made from photovoltaic cells, or PV for short. Simply broken down, photo means light, and voltaic relates to the production of electricity. Photovoltaic technology enables the creation of electricity using light. PV cells have at least 2 layers of semiconductors, one that's positively charged and one that's negatively charged. When the light shines on the semiconductor, the electric field across the junction between these 2 layers causes electricity to flow. The greater the intensity of light, the greater the flow of electricity. The light that hits the panels is converted into clean electricity. There are no moving parts, so this is a silent operation. The electricity generated by the panels is direct current. By installing an inverter, it's converted to alternating current, so it's in sync with the mains electricity and can be used normally. The clean electricity is then fed into the mains via the fuse board. Using meters, the amount of electricity generated and used can be recorded, and any spare electricity is sold back to the electricity supplier.
Solar power. Pros. Clean energy. Inexhaustible and abundant fuel supply. Available nearly everywhere. Technology exists today. Generates electricity directly from the sun. No moving parts. Power generation is silent. Runs air conditioners better when the sun is brighter. Requires minimal maintenance. Cons. Power not available at night. High cost, especially with energy storage. Requires inverter to produce AC current. Requires storage or grid connection. Exotic materials required. Needs a large amount of space. Low efficiency. Low energy intensity. Fragile materials. A much better system might come along next year.
Up on a hill, 15 feet in the air, I took a golf ball hit. And this is what a golf ball hit looks like on a solar panel. It fractured it big time.
Biomass power. Pros. Completely renewable. Widely available. Low cost input. Abundant supply. Domestically produced. Cleaner than fossil fuels. Converts waste into energy. Con. Energy intensive. Needs lots of land. Requires water to grow. Not totally clean. Competes with food production. Some fuels are seasonal. Process can be expensive.
Ethanol is great. We made this myth number one because almost all the politicians are saying that this election season. They say we must use more ethanol to help save the environment. But is it true?
The economics of ethanol make more and more sense.
It makes a lot of sense.
Well, if it made a lot of sense, we wouldn't have to subsidize it or mandate its consumption.
Jerry Taylor of the Cato Institute points out that if ethanol were just better, as so many people say, they wouldn't need your tax money.
But it turns out that it takes just about as much energy to produce ethanol as you get when you burn ethanol. It takes a lot of fossil fuels to make the fertilizer, to run the tractor, to build the silo, to get that corn to a processing plant, to run the processing plant.
And ethanol cannot be moved in pipelines the way gasoline is because ethanol degrades. So using ethanol means using many more big polluting trucks.
To move the corn from the fields of the processing plant, and then to move that corn ethanol from the Midwest to the coast. That takes a tremendous amount of energy. Energy balance is zero, more or less.
The increased push for ethanol has led to a sharp increase in corn growing, which means much more land must be plowed. And that means much more fertilizer. Much more water must be used on farms, and more pesticide. Even if it doesn't save energy, it'll reduce our dependence on foreign oil.
Oh, that's nonsense. There is simply no way we are going to reduce our dependence on foreign oil via ethanol.
A University of Minnesota study concluded that even turning all of America's corn into ethanol would meet only 12% of our gasoline demands.
It's not going to produce energy independence. It's not going to clean the air. It's going to do none of those things. All it will do is make corn farmers richer and companies like ADM who process ethanol a lot richer. It'll make every one of us who aren't in that business poorer. This is a naked transfer program designed to take money from people who buy corn and to give it to people who grow corn and people who make ethanol for a living. That's all it is.
Is produced when the reservoir water flows into the intake towers. Here the water falls through a tunnel or penstock inside the dam. At the end of the penstock, the water hits and turns a turbine propeller which drives the generator. This spins a series of magnets inside coils of copper wire, producing electricity. Power lines then carry the electricity from the generator to a substation. Meanwhile, the water continues past the turbine propeller and empties into the river downstream.
Hydroelectric power. Pros. Environmentally friendlier than fossil fuels. Very reliable. Low maintenance cost. Other economic benefits. No waste disposal issues. Does not create CO2. Cons. Dam failure can destroy entire towns and kill many. Can lead to major environmental issues. Very high upfront cost. When there's a drought, no power.
A janitor wiped floors in the machine hall just minutes before a deadly mass of water destroyed the 3 generators, burying 75 workers under the rubble. Panicked employees rushed to the exit. The rescue operation has been going on for more than 3 weeks, with the death toll rising practically every day. The 74th body was found on Wednesday. 1 more woman is still missing. The feeling of heavy grief is still felt around the region. After the water was drained away, it looked like a battlefield.
As you can see, wind, solar, biomass, and hydroelectric power have their pros and their cons. From the inexhaustible energy supplied by the sun to the devastating results of dam failure, I have shown you alternative energies at its best and its worst. Now we need to continue the journey to lessen our carbon footprint, making a cleaner and safer world for years to come.